Hi, I'm Mike Dilke and you're listening to the Relaxback UK show, the show that explores all kinds of health topics relevant to you, your family and your friends. Each week I talk to expert guests from a range of backgrounds to inform and entertain you. So please do join the Relaxback UK family and stay tuned. Hi, and thank you for joining me with the Relaxback UK show this week. Two very different topics this time. The first one is very serious.
It's cumulative bad days. It's like they all stack up on top of each other, and it starts to be that you can't imagine any better days.
That's a description of depression, which can be really awful and affect many people. That was patient Annie. Also, I talked with Erin Lee, CEO of Flow Neuroscience, which has the following to help with the condition.
At the heart of which is really our Flow headset. So what the headset is a brain stimulation wearable.
Then it's David Marsh, Chief Executive of the New Victoria Hospital in Kingston, London. We talk about lots of things. We talk about the history of the hospital, the change in the habits of self-pay patients, and also this initiative.
And we've called it the Community Champion Initiative at New Victoria Hospital, whereby we are providing £125,000 worth of free medical treatment.
So please do join me for a great show. Thank you. So my first guests are Erin Lee, CEO of Flow Neuroscience, and Annie, who's a patient with depression. And I asked them first off, just how prevalent is depression in the UK and indeed worldwide?
Unbelievably, the World Health Organization estimates that in less than 6 years, depression will be the leading cause of mortality globally. So that's sort of more than cancer, murder. It is a massive issue. And I think estimates for those impacted in the UK range from anywhere from 1 in 5 to 1 in 7 individuals will suffer with depression at some point in their life. So it's quite a large scale issue.
Yeah, actually, before we chatted, I did a little bit of homework as well, and I got some WHO figures, World Health Organization figures, and it said that it was estimated that 700,000 people worldwide die of suicide every 12 months. So that's a suicide every 40 seconds. You know, this is just huge.
It's massive. And it's something we don't often talk about. We talk about people living with depression, but we don't often talk about how many people die from it.
Yes, absolutely. So let's just move on to living with depression a little bit. Now, I'm lucky. I've not had depression, and sort of my family members haven't had depression either, really. So this is a bit of an impossible question, Annie. So apologies for that. But I don't know if it's possible to really give an idea of what depression is, because this is not having a bad, crummy day, because we're all used to that. We know that. So can you help people try and understand sort of what extra it is? Because, you know, I'm fairly fortunate. I'm very fortunate. Okay, it hasn't happened to me. So kind of enlighten me on just how it can affect you and what it's like.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is a big question.
Apologies.
Yeah, it is just so all-encompassing. I think when you have a bad day, you have this awareness that it's a bad day and that it's going to end, and you wake up tomorrow and you get to start again. Whereas depression, it's cumulative bad days. It's like they all stack up on top of each other, and it starts to be that you can't imagine any better days. Like for me, I just get so tired. I just feel heavy. But then in this kind of cruel twist of fate, like I can't sleep at night. I really struggle to eat. And then that just begins to interfere with everything. Like I can't work. I can't socialize. I just haven't got the energy. And I think, it just goes so far beyond what I think people see as this kind of, you just sit around crying and feeling sad. Like actually you feel more like numb, just completely indifferent to anything. Like stuff that used to give you joy doesn't, stuff that should make you angry doesn't. Like it's frightening. It's a really frightening place to be.
So you kind of lose the ability to function pretty much.
Completely. Yeah.
Right. Okay, right. I think we've established it's a serious problem and it's a truly horrible thing when it affects you. However, there are treatments around. There are antidepressant medication. Is there a need for something else? What's wrong with what we got?
Yeah. It's a great point. And I'll say that there are a number of people out there that use antidepressants and are happy with them, right? And they certainly are prevalent. They are generally inexpensive, they're generally accessible. It's estimated that of the people that are treated for depression, 80% will be given drugs. So to your point, that seems like a lot must be working, but the reality is they're actually quite ineffective for many. So less than a third of people on antidepressants will go on to experience remission from depression. And beyond that, actually, what is more, paralyzing for many folks is the side effects. So around 60% of antidepressant users will experience multiple side effects, and these are quite serious, right?
What sort of? Annie was nodding there, so yeah. Perhaps you can tell us some of the side effects that you might have come across.
Oh God, I mean, for me, there was like nothing it didn't affect. Like they stopped me sleeping, definitely sort of gave me worse insomnia. I ground my teeth, which was supposed to be a rare one. They messed up my tummy. They gave me headaches. And this was just constant, like all the time, just felt like this base level of physically unwell on top of feeling quite mentally unwell. So they stank for me. But, I know that lots of people are on them and they're okay with them. So.
Okay, but so the potentially side effects, which are pretty horrible. So if there is a way to kind of get over the depression and not have to deal with the side effects, this sounds like a good thing. So Erin, this way you have developed a device to help with that. What is it?
Yes, we have. So at Flow, we have our treatment platform, which at the heart of which is really our Flow headset. So what the headset is a brain stimulation wearable, which maybe sounds a little sci-fi, but the reality is it's quite straightforward, right? We leverage a technology called transcranial direct stimulation, or TDCS.
It's actually, this doesn't sound sci-fi at all. It sounds like a throwback at the moment to like the 1930s and electric shock therapy.
Yes. And, I think some people say, Erin, is this like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest? And the reality is no. The mechanism of action, they are distant cousins. So for hundreds of years, actually going all the way back to ancient Greece, electricity has been studied as a way of writing sort of natural impulses, right? Our body operates on electricity. So there's a lot of science behind this. And that's effectively what we tap into. We use that mild electrical current to target the left dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, a mouthful, but that's the area of the brain responsible for depression. So effectively, what you see in studies, people with depression often have less activity in this region of the brain, right? And so your neurons generally fire. What we do is for people with depression, where they don't have that activity, we use that current to stimulate that brain activity and thus, reduce depressive symptoms.
Okay. All right. So I was going to ask you, what is the current actually doing to the brain? So you kind of answered it there. You're saying it makes the brain in some areas work a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, your brain runs on electricity, right? Your neurons are firing constantly, but those with depression often have less activity, right? So that's why you hear about things like brain fog, low mood. And so we're sort of nudging it along. And so we're a much gentler version of those scary electric shock therapies you've heard in the past, which are quite harsh. This is just a gentle nudge, sort of like a help in the right direction is the way I sort of would position it.
Okay. So, what led to the development of this? So, Erin, are you a neuroscientist or a brain surgeon or something? What's your input?
I am neither of those, actually. So I'm less interesting than that. But so our co-founders are indeed sort of a former psychiatrist and an AI scientist and a hardware developer. And I think, Daniel, who's the co-founder and sort of the brains, for lack of, not to make a pun, but the brains behind the operation, effectively, he was treating patients every day and saw how abysmal treatment options were. Whether it was depression, PTSD, drugs weren't working, there weren't affordable alternatives. And in looking into the science and some of the, the studies that he was seeing, there was a ton of potential to harness electricity. And so that was sort of the impetus behind Flow's early device and where we are today.
Okay, so how long has it been around?
We've been in market in the UK for almost 3 years now, but the company itself is about 8 years old.
Okay, all right. So it's a headset. So Annie, maybe you can take us through what you actually do when you're using it.
Yeah, I'm afraid I haven't got it with me. I should have, but
It's all right. It's radio. It doesn't matter. You just describe
of course. Yeah. Sorry, yeah, that was really dumb. But yeah, it has an app. So you go on the app and you connect it up via Bluetooth, and then it has these sort of wetted saline pads that go kind of get like attached to the headset, and then you just pop that on and then just sit for half an hour and chill, basically. Like, I know lots of people do just potter around the house, but I choose to take half an hour of enforced relaxation. It's quite nice. So do that twice a week. And yeah.
I was going to say, all right, so it's not every day, it's twice a week for half an hour.
Yeah, but well, there's an initial 3 weeks where you do 5 times a week. I mean, I think Erin can probably speak to this better than I can, but yeah, there's like an activation phase at the beginning and then a maintenance phase after that. And you can reset periodically if you need to. Okay,
so is there like a dial on this thing? Can you turn it up if that's what you require? Is kind of the use of the thing personalized, or one size fits all?
So
either of you.
Oh yeah, maybe Erin could speak better.
Okay. So the device we have right now is one size fits all, and it's based on our clinical trials and the montage that we use. So we always lead with the science. As Annie mentioned, you can personalize the frequency of the treatment, and those individuals that work with a clinician, as many of our users do, are able to further personalize sort of frequency, length. We do have some new devices in development which will allow greater personalization. So strength, targeting, location, which we're pretty excited about. But today it's one size.
Okay, but you can change the frequency. So why might you want to do that? I mean, if your skull's a bit thicker or your head's a slightly different size. No, I mean, that might sound.
No, it's a very fair question.
It wasn't meant to.
No, it's a very fair question. So by frequency, I mean the number of times you use the device every week. One of the things we're looking at, though, to your point around sort of physiology and our next devices is the location, for example, of the stimulation pads. People's skulls are a little bit different. There's no evidence today that matters in terms of treatment, but we really want to be an entirely personalized custom device, which is what we're working towards.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question about that, because the impression I get is that all our brains are kind of quite fluid. So in general, parts of our brain take care of parts of our lives, but it's not hard and fast and sort of set, and the brains are kind of fluid. So could the area of the brain that you're looking to influence be really quite different from person to person? And how can you possibly deal with that?
It's such early days in the science, but in general, like what you'll see in sort of the breadth of research is that the left dorsolateral prefrontal cortex is generally responsible for mood, impulse control, things like that. And so that's generally true across individuals. Now, I think the question and some of what you see in more recent research is, where is that, dorsolateral prefrontal cortex located? And what do the sort of brain patterns look like in a particular individual? Do they look different? Do different individuals experience depression in different ways? And the answer to all of that is yes. And what we try and sort of measure is how much does it matter and what does that mean for the product and sort of the customization.
Right. Okay. I get that. What about if, I don't know, someone by mistake puts the thing on back to front and they stimulate a part of their brain that actually is working fine, and it could look after, I don't know, speech or something like that? I mean, are they going to start talking very fast, or are there any dangers of potentially stimulating a part of the brain that is fine?
So it's an interesting concept. I don't think people could put it on backwards, but they might. I think what I would reiterate is that the current that we use is extremely mild, right? And it's less than you'd find in a 9-volt battery, right? It's very low, and right. It's incredibly safe, right? So we have over 10,000 users in the UK. We've done a number of clinical studies, and we have none of the serious side effects that you see with drugs, for example. So most of our users, if they do have a side effect, will say sort of redness at the site. But what you're saying is a very good question. And I think, you will see devices on the market that aren't regulated, that are sort of fly by night. You can get them on Amazon. They look like battery packs. And I think if you read the reviews from those users, they do have negative effects because they aren't regulated and they aren't safe and they aren't tested in the way that ours is.
Actually, a question I didn't ask Annie, which I should have done. When you're wearing this thing, although it's a very low, small electrical current, can you feel anything? Is there a little bit of a buzz, or can you hear anything?
No, you can't hear anything. But it does kind of tingle a little bit. It's sort of just on the cusp of stinging, but it doesn't quite sting. Like, it tingles. So you can definitely feel it. Like,
Okay.
you know it's doing something. Yeah.
You know, it's
You mostly just feel the wet of the pads.
Okay.
Yeah.
And can you put it? This is a basic question. I should have asked this before. Does it work through hair, or do you have to tie your hair back?
No, I have to put my fringe up, and yeah. But no, you have to put it on the bare skin. In fact, my head's very tiny, and the headset kind of rings are quite big, so it just covers like from eyebrow to hairline for me.
Okay.
Whereas I think some people have a bit more forehead real estate to work with.
So yeah, okay, it works better if you've got a big forehead, or it's just a bit easier anyway.
I don't know, but yeah.
All right, so I got to say, this whole thing is intriguing, and from what we've said about the number of people that suffer from depression and the number of people that medication really doesn't work, this is potentially sounds like it could help a lot of people.
That's absolutely sort of our hope and sort of what drives us every day.
Excellent. So, and your background is you're the business behind it, are you?
That's right. So I actually spent most of my early career, about 10 years, in consumer technology. So companies like Google and Uber that are focused on user experiences, delightful experiences. I spent some time in digital health for 4.5 years before joining Flow, which is my goal is to bring it to as many people as possible.
Right. Well, from that point of view, the statistics of how many people may suffer from depression might be a good thing.
Yes, although, I always say I would love to be in a place where we don't have a business anymore, because, I don't think any of us want to see suffering. And so, yeah, it's a sort of a double-edged sword.
Yeah, no, I get it. That last comment was slightly facetious.
No, but they say, yeah.
All right, so look, if people are listening to this and thinking, actually, this does sound quite interesting, this potentially could even help me. Two questions really. How can people find out a bit more about it? And certainly in the UK, can they get it on the NHS?
So the first part is you can learn more about Flow at flowneuroscience.com. Pretty straightforward. And there you'll find a list of sort of all of our clinical trials, more information on how it works and how it's priced. We also work with over 80 clinics across the EU. So it is possible that we may, work with one of the private clinics. And then to your point on the NHS, are we available on the NHS? Not yet. Although we do have a few pilots with the Northamptonshire Trust, looking at sort of user response rates and experience, and ultimately results in cost savings to the NHS. And our goal, as I mentioned earlier, is really to drive accessibility and affordability. And so we are hopeful that we will have NHS coverage either later this year or early next year.
Certainly, I would imagine one thing that the NHS will be looking at will be peer-reviewed, published information that the thing actually works.
Absolutely.
Is there any of that? Can people see that on your website?
So we do have some of our previous clinical trials, but we just completed our FDA pivotal trial, which had about 180 people across the US and the UK. So it's one of the largest, if not the largest, clinical trial of TTCS in history. And we have just completed that. So I'm not ready to share results quite yet, but we will be doing that in the coming weeks, and that will absolutely be made available.
Okay, so will that be on your website? How are you going to share that? Because presumably you're trying to get it published in a high-ranking journal.
Yes, so the abstract will be available, and then the academic partners that we work with will work on submitting and publishing.
Good. All right. What's the timeline on that?
Hopefully before the end of the year. So we aim to apply for FDA approval before the end of the month. So very, very shortly. And then the abstract submissions will follow sort of on a similar timeline.
Okay. Well, when those results are published, I'd love to invite you back on, because I think that could be another very interesting chat.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Okay, but for now, Annie and Erin, thank you very much indeed for spending a few minutes chatting about this. I mean, it does sound very interesting, potentially very exciting, and could help a lot of people. So many thanks.
Thank you very much.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
The next guest on the Relaxback UK show is David Marsh. He is Chief Executive of the New Victoria Hospital in Kingston, London. And it's a big year for the New Victoria Hospital. I started off by asking him why.
Well, we celebrated or are celebrating our 125th anniversary this year. In fact, it was in May, just passed. We were born in December 1898. And the reason why I say May is because we were initially on the site across the road from where Kingston Hospital is at the moment. And we moved to our current site on Coombe Lane West in 1958. So we're celebrating our 125th anniversary.
All right, so you said it was born in 1898. Tell me a bit about the birth. Was it a difficult birth?
Well, I should say when we were formed, yes, it was a voluntary hospital that was formed by local GPs and doctors as a hospital to serve the sick and the dying in and around the Kingston area. It was known as the Kingston Victoria Hospital at the time. The doctors provided their treatment for free, and patients were also treated for free, funded by public donations. So that was the purpose of the hospital until 1948, when the NHS was formed, which is now 75 years old. It was decided that the voluntary hospitals were to be subsumed into the NHS at that time. And the Kingston Victoria Hospital, which had become commonly known as the Victoria Hospital, the doctors and GPs tried to fight the fact that they were going to be subsumed into the NHS and took the Southwest Metropolitan Health Board to task about taking over the hospital. Fought a battle for 2 years, lost it. So the hospital was taken over by the NHS in 1951 and became part of Kingston Hospital. Right. The doctors then formed a medical foundation, the Kingston Victoria Medical Foundation, about regrouping and forming a new hospital to do with exactly the same purposes and objectives, which is what they did. And they bought our current site for £10,000. And in 1958, we were reborn as the new Victoria Hospital with the same objectives as the original in 1898.
Okay, so when it was running, when it was sort of reborn, if you like, as the new Victoria Hospital, was it still free? I can't believe it was.
Yes, it was. I couldn't tell you for exactly how many years they continued to provide charitable services for free. It became apparent to them at the time that they were no longer able to sustain that. And so they started to open what they called fee-paying beds. And I think they started with 2 from the records that we've got. And eventually it became impossible for them to continue. So the hospital became a fee-paying hospital, although it had charitable status. And whether we don't have records, continue to provide free treatments alongside fee-paying treatment, I couldn't tell you. Right. But it became a fee-paying hospital from then on in.
Right. So, and what's the status now? Is the status of the hospital a charity?
We are a charity, yes, very much so. We're an independent hospital. We have our parent charity, which is the Victoria Foundation. They themselves are a charity with very similar objectives to ourselves, but we very much are a charitable hospital.
Right. So, do you still have, some beds that are open for free for deserving cases?
Yes, when you say beds, we provide treatment for free for a variety of patients. We have a very good association with the Richmond Rugby Club, where we provide some cardiology diagnostic services for them in terms of what they call the Richmond Heavies, which is the group of players that are 40 plus years old that continue to play rugby. But we also then take care of patients who either request treatment through the hospital for a particular reason, they are unable to afford it. Mostly it comes from one of the consultants who says, I have a patient, I need to see them for X, Y, and Z. They cannot afford it for a variety of reasons. Are you able to waive your fee for me to be able to do whatever the treatment is? And yes, we certainly do that. We don't publicize it, but we do it on a frequent basis.
Sure. And so presumably the other patients, they're either kind of self-pay or they pay via their health insurance.
Yeah, the majority of the patients that come to the hospital have private medical insurance, but we have a substantial group of patients who are what we call self-pay.
Right. Okay. It's probably an impossible question, but do you, or a very difficult question, do you have a feel for the kind of the percentage of those that are on self-pay, those that are on health insurance, and those that are on the charitable type work?
Yeah, well, it's quite difficult because you either look at it from percentage of our revenue comes from which group of patients, or you look at the activity, i.e. the number of people coming into the hospital, and they sort of vary, obviously, in terms of the percentages because revenue versus activity can be quite different. But the easiest way to look at it for us is from a revenue point of view. So approximately 25% of our revenue is derived from self-pay patients, and the remaining revenue that we generate is from either patients treated through the NHS or through private medical insurance, and or we work with third parties plus our charitable patients.
Right. Okay. So a good covering of them all. For the self-pay, actually, because recently, there's been a lot of talk how NHS waiting lists are very long and all the rest of it. Have you noticed more people sort of coming to you and saying, look, I've been waiting for my NHS knee operation or whatever for months. Can I just get it done with you? I'll pay. Is that sort of happening more often?
We started to see a spike probably about a year ago where our self-pay activity certainly increased substantially. It sort of has plateaued at the moment. And what consultants tell me is that they're seeing more and more GP type appointments, where before they may have seen, say, 20 patients in their clinic that were genuinely there for a consultation about whether they needed some form of treatment or whether they needed some more conservative type treatment. They're now seeing more GP type appointments. We say they've seen 30 people, so they're getting an extra 10 patients who are saying, I have this problem, and the consultant will say, well, actually, you just need a course of antibiotics. And the reason why they're coming to see the consultant is because they can't access their GP. So we're seeing the increase in self-pay, but it's not necessarily strictly related to those who need some form of surgical intervention. It's more a lot of GP type appointments as well.
All right. Okay. All right. That's interesting. Well,
yeah, very much so.
I mean, presumably that's as a result of some people finding it hard to get appointments with their GP, which isn't over the whole country for sure. Actually, I've recently been able to get GP appointments generally on the phone. Actually, it's been very efficient where I live, so that's probably patchy around the country. But I imagine that's potentially a topic for a whole nother chat.
Definitely, yes.
Yeah, and actually, what I really want to pick your brains and tell me about really today is you're 125 years old. The hospital is 125 years old, and you're celebrating with kind of in a special way. Tell us a bit about that.
Yes, well, we decided that to celebrate 125 years, we'd go back to our roots, which is where the consultants and the doctors and GPs that formed the hospital provided their services for free, and patients were treated for free. So we looked at developing an initiative, and we've called it the Community Champion Initiative at New Victoria Hospital, whereby we are providing £125,000 worth of free medical treatment for patients that need to put their case forward to the hospital as to why they need treatment, telling us about themselves, the difficulties they may have accessing treatment, and the way that it may transform their lives at present. So we put this initiative together. We've put it out there to the community to say we want to give back to those that have supported the hospital over 125 years by providing this free treatment, and recognizing that there's a lot of turmoil in the healthcare market at the moment. There are barriers to access, and here we are trying to do our best to say thank you for supporting us, and we're here to help.
Okay. Do you have a feel for well, two things really, the sorts of ailments that this might help with? Is it aimed at any particular kind of area of health, and how many people it might help as well?
We don't have a feel for how many people. We don't really have a feel for what type of ailments. It can be that somebody might just need a second opinion. It could be that someone has been told you need a surgical intervention and you're going to need to wait for 12 months, 18 months, and it could be life-changing for that particular individual. So there'll be a variety of reasons that people would want to seek help. And so we don't have a feel for any of that. All we can say is that you can apply through the link on our website. It will tell you what services we do offer, because obviously we do not do everything that is available out there. And then put together your case, apply online, and it will be evaluated by our committee, and they will determine from a clinical perspective, can we help? Why should we be helping? And therefore, yes, we can give you medical assistance.
Actually, before we chatted, I had a little look on your website, and I got to the price list part, and a knee replacement is over £14,000. So I was thinking, well, although £125,000 sounds like an awful lot of money, and it is, and I'm not knocking that. That's quite a generous thing. Actually, that does less than 10 knee replacements. So, although you did say you're helping all sorts of different people, but in those terms, I was thinking, okay, they might only help 10 people or so.
Well, certainly you're quite right, but we want to try and look at the broad range of services we provide and not say we're going to do 10 knee replacements and that's it. We really want to help people across the spectrum. I'm not saying we're here to limit it to one knee replacement or 2 knee replacements. It all depends upon the application that's come through their case, their diagnosis, their prognosis, and it's to be evaluated by a committee that is made up of clinical people and non-clinical people as to give somebody who is really deserving of treatment. And that can be for anything, whether it be a medical intervention or a surgical intervention. We want to help as many people as we can across the spectrum rather than focus just, say, on orthopedics.
Right. So when people apply for this help and they write down what their health issues are, do they? Is there a space on the form for any other information? About what they've done in life, what they hope to do in life, or that sort of stuff.
Yes, there's free text for them to put together a compelling case and tell us about themselves, why this treatment would transform their lives, how they got to this point, and what the treatment, as I said, will do for them. So however they want to tell us about themselves and their case, they are free to provide that information. And we encourage them to do so, because the more we understand about the individual concerned, the better it is for a committee to look at that case and say, yes, this is certainly something we can do to assist.
Do you know what? While you were talking, I was thinking, I'm really glad I'm not on that committee. On one hand, you can provide help to people, which is fantastic, but on the other hand, you've got to turn around and say, sorry, pal, you don't make the grade. You're not deserving enough, which is probably a bit of an unfair way of saying it. But decisions have to be made. Some people get help and some people won't.
Yes, it's certainly, as you've just said, it's a decision, a clinical decision that will be made, and it's about trying to assist people to make a difference to their lives. So it is always going to be a case versus another case, not a competition at all. This is all about us saying, we want to help you. You have had a barrier to access healthcare for whatever reason, and we are here, therefore, to try and do our best to provide assistance to you to transform your life.
Yeah. No, I mean, Yes. Anyway, a very, potentially quite a difficult decision to have to make. So is this open to people just in the Kingston, London area, or the whole of the UK, or how does that work?
We've opened it up to the whole of the UK because you cannot just restrict it to an area. We certainly treat patients from a broad range of postcodes within the UK. So we don't want to restrict it just to Kingston. We want to open it up to the community that has supported us. And it might seem odd that the word I'm using is community because it tends to indicate that it is localized. It very much is appreciated that the local community do support us in a big way, but we do have patients from all over the country.
Okay. So if people are listening to this and thinking, goodness, I've been waiting for my hip replacement or whatever it might be for months, I would like to try and take advantage of this kind offer. What do people do and how long have they got to apply?
Well, they need to apply certainly by the 11th of September is when applications will close, and then we will notify successful applicants by the 2nd of October.
Oh, okay. And the details of how to apply, they're on your website?
Yes, they need to just go to our main website, www.newvictoria.co.uk, and they will look for a section that says Be Our Community Champion. They click on that link and they will find more information from there about the application form and the process.
Okay, all right. Any pointers or advice for someone who's going to think, just listening to this and thinking, right, I'm going to apply now?
Well, I would encourage those people who may know of somebody that needs help, that may be a little bit hesitant in their self-belief about applying and how they go about applying, because they might not have the abilities to apply, or they may find using a website quite difficult, to go ahead and nominate themselves, because I think that's really key. We just don't want to limit it to somebody as an individual to apply, because we recognize that some people may not have the necessary skills to use the information technology at the moment. And so, yes, we encourage it from a broad range of people, individuals, people who nominate and say, well, this is a really deserving person that I know personally, and I really feel that they would benefit from the treatment. So that really is what we want to encourage it from everyone. We're really trying to say a big thank you, and we're here to help you as best we can with, in somewhat limited resources, to the £125,000.
Yeah, excellent. All right. Well, I hope it goes very well and you're able to help a lot of people. So, David, thank you very much indeed for telling us all about the hospital and about this event.
Well, I really appreciate it, Mike. Our Community Champion Initiative is really important to us in our 125th year. We look forward to publicising how we've helped transform people's lives over the coming months. And long may this continue. We will see how it goes. I know to date that we've had approximately 12 applications already since we went live 2 days ago. So that's encouraging news, and we really invite as many applications as possible.
Very good. Very good. Thanks for chatting.
Thank you very much, Mike. Nice to talk to you.
Thank you very much to my guests on this week's show, and they were Erin Lee, CEO of Flow Neuroscience, and Annie, and they were both talking about depression. And then it was David Marsh, the Chief Exec of the New Victoria Hospital in Kingston, London. And of course, a big thank you to you for listening, and please do have a healthy week until next week.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
Thanks for listening to the Relaxback UK show. Join me, Mike Dilke, again next week for more fascinating interviews and chat. If you're listening to the podcast version, please subscribe, like, and share it with your family and friends. And have a healthy week. Until next week.